Here's one of the most common frustrations I hear from CEOs, and it's this: I can't trust our forecasts. It creates a very specific kind of pressure, because if you can't predict revenue, you can't confidently make decisions. You don't know when to invest. You don't know what the next quarter really looks like. And what's interesting is most businesses treat forecasting like a numbers problem. They assume the fix is a better CRM, a better dashboard, a better spreadsheet, or a better forecasting template. But forecasting normally isn't wrong because of maths. It's wrong because of discipline. And discipline is a leadership issue. A forecast is only as accurate as the sales system underneath it. So in this video, I'm going to break down why forecasts are so often inaccurate, what causes inconsistent pipeline reporting, what sales leaders should be doing weekly to predict revenue, and why pipeline management is one of the most underrated scaling systems in business. If you want predictable growth, this is not optional. Let's start with the first question. Why are sales forecasts most often inaccurate? Sales forecasts are mostly inaccurate for one reason. They're built on opinions instead of evidence. Most salespeople forecast based on how they feel. They say things like, the customer sounded positive, I think we're close, they just need to run it past finance, I think it should land this month. And leaders accept it because they simply don't have a better system. But those statements aren't forecast data, they're optimism. And optimism isn't a forecasting method. A forecast should be built on proof. Proof like the decision maker is identified, the problem is clear, the impact of doing nothing is understood, the buying process is mapped, the timeline is confirmed, and the customer has agreed on the value. If those things aren't true, then the deal is not forecastable. It's hopeful. Now here's the key issue. Most businesses don't have a shared definition of what a real deal looks like. So deals move forward too early. Pipelines become inflated. Forecasts look healthy. And then at the end of the month, everyone acts surprised when the numbers don't land. But it's not a surprise, it's predictable, because without evidence, forecasts become emotional. And an emotional forecast creates inconsistent leadership decisions, which is exactly what makes scaling feel unstable. Inconsistent pipeline reporting typically isn't dishonesty, it's ambiguity. Look, most salespeople aren't intentionally inflating the pipeline. They're just working with unclear rules. Here's what that ambiguity looks like inside of a business. One rep logs a deal as qualified after a good conversation. Another one moves forward because they said, this looks interesting. So when leaders look at the pipeline, they're not looking at one reality. They're looking at 5 different interpretations of what a deal means. And that's where inconsistency creeps in. Pipeline reporting breaks when stages aren't defined. Criteria for moving a deal forward isn't explicit. And evidence isn't required to justify forecast confidence. So pipeline becomes subjective. And so when the pipeline is subjective, forecasting becomes completely unreliable. And this is why pipeline reviews become increasingly frustrating. Leaders ask, why is that deal here? What's changed? How confident are we really? And salespeople don't have concrete answers. And it's not typically because they're hiding anything, but because the system never asked them to collect that information in the first place. A disciplined pipeline requires clear stage definitions, clear exit criteria, and shared language across the team. Once that exists, something shifts. Pipelines stop being a wish list and it becomes a diagnostic tool. And that is the moment where forecasting starts to improve. So how do I improve forecasting accuracy as my team grows? Forecasting accuracy doesn't improve by asking salespeople to be more accurate. It improves as the system gets tighter as the team grows. Because the bigger the team, the more dangerous ambiguity becomes. In a small team, the leader typically knows the deals personally. They can kind of sense what's real and what isn't. But as the team grows, that intuition disappears. And if the system doesn't replace it, forecast just completely falls apart. So improving forecast accuracy as you scale comes down to three things. The first one, standardizing what forecast accuracy means. Every stage must mean the same thing to each salesperson. If a deal is forecast at 80%, it should meet the same criteria across the board. No exceptions, no gut feel. Now the second, separating pipeline health from forecast. Now this is where a lot of teams get confused. Pipeline is about volume and flow. Forecast is about certainty. Not every deal in the pipeline should be in the forecast. Not every deal in the forecast should be treated the same. Clear separation reduces pressure and improves honesty. Now the third, reviewing forecasts based on evidence, not emotion. As a leader, the most powerful question is not, do you think this will close? It's, what evidence do we have that this will close? That shift changes everything, because once evidence becomes the standard, accuracy improves naturally. Salespeople stop guessing, leaders stop reacting, and decisions become calmer. That's how sales forecast accuracy scales with the team, not by adding tools, but by tightening the discipline. So what should sales leaders review weekly to predict revenue? Most sales leaders review too much. They look at dashboards packed with numbers, charts, and trends, and somehow they still feel unsure what's going to land. The goal of a weekly review is not information, it's insight. So if you want to predict revenue, there are 4 things a sales leader needs to do every single week. Review deals that have moved stages. Not deals that exist, but deals that have moved. Momentum tells you where deals are real and where deals are stalling. If deals aren't moving, no amount of pipeline volume will save that forecast. Now the second, evidence against stage criteria. For each forecasted deal, leaders should ask, has the decision maker been confirmed? Is the problem clearly defined? Is the buying process mapped? Has the value been agreed? If the evidence isn't there, that creates a coaching opportunity for leaders to tighten up the process in order to have more accurate forecasting. The third is leading indicators. Weekly reviews should focus on discovery meetings booked, qualifications completed, and presentations and proposals presented. These all predict revenue before it shows up. Now, number 4, stalled deals and leakage points. Every process has weak points. Weekly reviews should expose where deals slow down and specifically why. Because forecasting improves when you fix the system, not when you pressure the team. When leaders review the right things, forecasting stops being reactive and it becomes a discipline. Pipeline disciplines is one of the most underrated growth systems in a business, because most people think pipeline's just a sales thing. But pipeline discipline is actually a leadership thing, and here's why. When pipeline is undisciplined, the business becomes emotionally reactive. Leaders overhire because they think pipeline's strong. They overinvest because forecast looks healthy. They make decisions based on numbers that aren't real. And then when deals don't convert, everyone scrambles. And that is the cycle that makes scaling feel unstable. Pipeline discipline breaks that cycle. Disciplined pipeline does 3 things. It protects focus. Salespeople stop chasing everything. They stop filling pipeline full of unqualified deals just to look good. It protects margin. When pipeline is weak, discounting increases. When pipeline is disciplined, value selling becomes possible because pressure reduces. And number 3, it protects leadership decisions. And this is the biggest one. When pipeline is clean, forecasts become reliable. And when forecast is reliable, CEOs can make calm decisions. And that's what scalable growth actually is. Not just revenue going up, but confidence going up with it. And that's why pipeline discipline is not optional. It's the backbone of predictable scaling. So if your forecast feels unreliable, the answer is not another dashboard, it's not another spreadsheet, and it's not asking your team to be more accurate. Forecasts are wrong when the system underneath them is weak. They're wrong when deals move forward based on opinion instead of evidence. They're wrong when pipeline forecasting is inconsistent. They're wrong when leaders are reviewing numbers instead of reality. The fix is discipline. And discipline is built through clear stage definitions, clear qualifying criteria, evidence-based forecasting, and weekly leadership rhythms. When those are all in place, forecasting stops being emotional and it becomes predictable.